I'm Josie.
I'm Jenny.
I'm Amy.
I'm Marley Bangard.
My name is Natalie.
It's Joanna.
It's Kaylee.
I'm Nada.
My name is Sarah.
Taylor.
I'm Dominic and I'm from Toronto.
Nottingham in the UK.
Liverpool in the UK.
I'm from London. I'm from Ohio and Providence, Rhode Island.
Virginia in the United States.
I am from North Carolina.
I'm from Morocco.
I come from Kenya.
I'm from Washington, D.C.
US from Michigan.
I've been in Paris for about 5 weeks now.
For about a month, 6 weeks now.
Just a little bit over a year.
This is my second year in Paris, but I moved to France in 2015.
The past 4 years.
3-4 weeks.
9 years.
3 years.
Just over 3 years.
Yeah, just over 2 years.
I think I had like very much a typical, like stereotypical vision of Paris.
Croissants every day for breakfast.
The Eiffel Tower and like people running around with baguettes and like flowers.
Like baguettes and berets and like, you know, jazz bars.
Women walking in the street with big tulle skirts and little poodles.
City of lights, like everything was, I don't know, magical and stuff.
I loved Paris. It was a beautiful city. I thought French was like the most beautiful language. I took French all through high school.
Which I knew, like, probably it's not really like that, but that was my vision and everything.
Before I moved here, I had already been like on a family trip when I was about 13 or 14.
Before I actually moved here, I came here like on vacation for a week.
And totally in love with just walking down the streets and like wide-mouthed and just super in love with the city.
And that kind of reinforced it because you only do touristic stuff when you're on vacation. So I like went to the Eiffel Tower and did all that stuff.
And then I studied abroad, and like the experience I had abroad in Paris was very much that of a student studying abroad in Paris. So I think I went to like all the tourist sites, like hung out with all the abroad students, like. So it was a very fun experience, but I think that still gave me a bit of a rose-colored tint to Paris, I think.
Before I came here, I used to like Paris, just it's fancy. With the Eiffel Tower, smooth flowing, nice.
When I'd come, I'd only done like all the touristy stuff. So I had that kind of perception of Paris.
I was lucky because in high school I actually hosted a French exchange student. So I was able to experience French culture in a way, very interesting way prior to actually moving here. So then by the time I moved here, I never really felt this culture shock that most people experience.
I went to a French-speaking school, and so they like showed us a lot of books and movies about like the darker sides of Paris. We read a whole book about like illegal immigration. Yeah, so I didn't have that much of a rose picture, but I had never lived here either.
Well, I'd been here a lot, but I'd never really been here for more than like a few days, and it was always so glamorized. You know, you're eating at the best restaurants, you're only using Ubers to get around, you're not having to really deal with French people all the time. So for me, Paris was like easy. It was just beautiful, stunning, nothing was really that difficult. And then you move here, and you smell cigarettes and piss all the time.
It's not quite that like vie en rose as it was in the beginning.
I mean, I still love it, but yes, I'm a bit jaded, one could say.
Rush hour is crazy, the noise is crazy, the bureaucracy getting a bank here is insane, as in it's a whole process. Getting things done here it's chaotic.
It's stressful.
In the UK, we're very rigid with time, whereas in France, it can take ages for things to get sorted. And they presume that you know how to do everything, which takes getting used to.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's still a beautiful city, and like there's like I truly do believe it's one of the most beautiful cities in the world. But I think now it's much more real, you know. Like I see I live in like you know, the street I live on is very residential, and it's like not by no means like the most beautiful street in Paris. And I think it's, you know, I wake up, I get my coffee, I go to work, I come back from work. It's like it's day to day.
It definitely became more of like, oh, this is a real place. Do you know what I mean? It's not just like a place where you go for like a weekend vacation and eat a bunch of croissants and then leave. Do you know, Paris is like a city, a big city with a lot of its own problems.
I think because we all live with French families as well.
Yeah.
We've been introduced a lot more to things that they actually do, like, you know, just going to the bakery every day.
Well, I think the biggest thing is like realizing that the life that we imagine that French people have, and like the French life that we imagine isn't what people, and especially people our age, like live from day to day. And also the presence of American culture. You know, I thought that I was going to be like watching French movies and listening to French music and like getting all these recommendations. And when I would ask French people like, what music do you listen to? They were like, I listen to American music.
I still think it's the City of Lights. I really like Paris, actually. I think the culture part in it is like great.
I think it's quite nice. I think it's like any big city, really. Yeah, just they speak French and they have better food. That's it.
I still love and adore Paris, but when you live here, you have a lot of days that are hard, and then you are like, okay, it's a real city. Some things are going to be difficult. Some French people are going to be mad at you or yell at you when you're on your bike wrong or something. So my perception's changed to just slightly more realistic.
The city is still so beautiful, and even with the complications of all the paperwork and all the stuff that you have to do to find an apartment and all the loops you have to jump through, it's been totally worth it.
The small things. Like, I feel like they got a lot of details exactly right.
Actually, the series Emily in Paris had a lot of cliches in it. Some of them were true. I don't know, seen by a stranger, like someone who just came to the country, a newcomer, if you can say. I found they are like relatable and true, but some of them were not, but funny. Though.
I was very skeptical when I saw the trailer on Netflix. I was like, oh, that looks so basic. But then when I started watching it, I think the first moment where I was like, okay, I might be into this was when she walks into her building and the guardian like looks at her and says nothing, but it's just like, you know, like that look that only French people can give. I was like, okay, this was written by someone who has moved to Paris and has had this experience before.
I think a lot of things like could be perceived as being right. I think that they were just like over exaggerated, which of course is inevitable to some extent.
When she asked for une pain au chocolat, she's like, un pain au chocolat.
Un pain de chocolat, that's how they correct you. It's from love, but like, oh.
The idea of leaving Paris for the weekend is to go to your chateau in the countryside.
Her pronouncing things wrong in French, like the faux amis, that whole episode when she says je suis excitée, that actually made me laugh because that is such a classic experience for every single foreign, non-native French speaker here. It's gonna happen, and that was very accurate.
Her having a lot of events in the evenings, I think that's something that is really specific to Paris as well, and the fact that I think all of us, we see most of our friends on most nights of the week because it's a lot of us have tiny apartments, so you go out.
The buildings that they don't have elevators. That's so true. You might find like a 6-story building, you just have to climb the stairs and all.
Well, c'est pas possible.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
We literally, before we watched Emily in Paris, we had a conversation about that being the most used phrase in France.
And we even made that joke too. We went out with some French people and we made the joke about like, oh, everything in France, pas possible, pas possible. You know, it should be like the French motto.
And then we watched it and we all texted each other. We were like, oh my god, that's actually says that.
This is actually a thing.
They had the small things like dog poop in the road and the pain au chocolat, which is like incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Random rude people.
I do feel like it actually did get a lot of the stereotypes correct in terms of like they take super long lunch breaks. You know what I mean? This is a thing that when I first came here, I was like shocked. I was like a 2-hour lunch break, even a 1-hour lunch break. Like I was used to like a 30-minute, 40-minute like dine and dash scenario.
Yeah, they start late, 10:30, like pretty normal.
I was talking to my French friend about this yesterday, that French people come into work at like 10 o'clock.
So I work in an advertising agency in social media. So I work in the same industry that she was worked in luxury. In terms of the hours of work, I think they got that right. Like I get to work at 10 and I leave at 7 or 7:30 most nights. And so I think in terms of the work culture, everyone's very nice. I like all of my French colleagues. So I think her two like guy friends that she has, like that reminds me a lot of my colleagues, where we're fun and like we joke and like the sense of humor is very dry, but it's a fun kind of joking.
I think they got right how deadpan and how standoffish French people can be.
Reserved. Yeah, blunt.
We've all said that we think that French people are way more reserved, especially than English people.
Not reserved, I think deadpan.
Yeah.
I think they give less away.
I think the people in the show are that way. To an extent. I think they exaggerate it a little bit, obviously for the drama of the show.
Like my first impression of Sylvie, who was the boss, like it was just like, oh my god, this woman is so, I know exactly who this woman is, or like kind of like the middle-aged, very, very beautiful, but kind of mean, but also I'm not even sure if it's just meanness or just frankness. Like Sylvie being like, no, I don't want to go to lunch with you. And like, why would I want to? Like, I'm your boss. Like, there's this hierarchy that you don't cross. Like, French, I think, are like very, you know, this is work time from 12 to, 5 is work time. And then from 5, I'm not in the office. Like, don't contact me with anything, outside of work time. Like, really designated moments for work and for leisure during the day.
Oh, there's so much I can say to this.
Ooh. Well, actually, the series didn't really show like the state of many things in Paris, like the transport. We don't know how Emily goes from point A to point B. She just goes, and she's like wearing stilettos or something. So obviously, she didn't go by foot.
It's very white, and that was the thing, like when I got to Paris, and that's something that's beautiful I think about Paris, is it's so mixed. Like there's people from everywhere in the world, and I think that's part of what I like about Paris, and it was just like all European descent people.
Some stuff I found very like relatable, and some stuff I didn't experience, to be honest. Like, I don't know, that Parisians are a little hostile or something. I didn't notice it when I first come, because like everyone was really nice, and whenever I asked someone, they answered. Or perhaps I didn't ask many people.
How they were like, no, you can't have lunch with us, you can't have lunch with us. I watched a couple of episodes with my au pair family, and the mum was like, that's not true.
Yeah,
she was like, we all eat together. Like if someone new was at the office, we would eat with them. So yeah, I think that was a bit overdone, to be honest.
I've actually found the opposite. I found French people to be very much like, come out with us, join in, we want you part of the group.
Oh my god, one comment about that bakery that's in the show, because I would go there like almost every day for lunch, and it's like a very popular bakery, but like the women that work there are like they are, if you like don't have your order ready and like order at the right spot, they're like on you. They're like, Madame, c'est pas correct. You have to like say that before, like if you get to the end and you're like, oh actually, can I add like a whatever, like a pain au chocolat or an éclair? They're like, you should have said that like before, like now it's messing up the system. So they would not be taking selfies with you on a weekday during lunchtime in real life. That's all I can say. Also, I mean, I get they're filming it, but like it's always empty. Like that bakery is like a very, like a good one. It's like very popular. It's always packed. So if you visit Paris, you should definitely go there, but they're not going to be as friendly as they seem.
In terms of like her dating life, I think this is a two-sided for me. I think French guys are much more forward, and they're much more, I think, like to the point, and when they like you, they tell you. So I think a lot of the guys she dealt with were that way. However, I could promise you, I have never once been approached at a cafe by a beautiful French man being like, oh, can I talk to you, like the professor? And like, so to me, in that sense, I think that was very also romanticized, because that's just like not what happens ever.
I live in a chambre de bonne. Emily does not live in a chambre de bonne. Emily lives in a beautiful one-bedroom flat. Mine's a bigger chambre de bonne, and her flat looks like Versailles Palace compared to mine.
We're all like, we've suffered, like we've experienced an authentic chambre de bonne where you're, in this like 9 meter square teeny little space where there's a toilet in the hallway that you're having to use, and she's having an apartment that is, that you would normally be paying $1,200 a month for rent. Double facing windows that she opens up, and we're like, that's not how this works. You have a little window in the roof normally.
I was watching and I was like, no, just call it a flat. Just call it a flat.
Yeah. I feel like whenever they go to like cafes, they seem to get served like pretty quickly, which is like never the case. Like,
French people don't smoke inside anymore. That is over. They love their smoke breaks, but they're outside now.
They do not smoke indoors like that. They smoke a lot outdoors.
This idea of like all French people do is talk about sex.
I don't know where that got written into the script, but that's just not a thing at all. And
of course they do to some extent, honestly. But like, I mean, in the workplace, in a meeting, not necessarily.
Also, how does she afford to eat at a bistro every single day? I need her to go to Brooklyn Pizzeria and get a €5 pizza, please. I need you to be at Subway. Eat some crappy food, please.
I have some feelings about the Americanness of her, and I will say that. Like, as someone who lives in Paris, I'm happy to be an American. I feel like the way that she goes about it is not the way that all Americans go about it.
There's more than one kind of like American tourist, I guess, in Paris, or American coming to live in Paris, and it's really hard to generalize like, oh, Americans are like this when they come to Paris. I think I've seen that exist, like the cliche of walking around and like getting in everyone's way because you're too busy looking at the buildings, but also like I've seen people like be really respectful and I don't know, try in the ways that they can engage with this culture and take more from it than just like cherry pick the kind of stereotypes.
I don't think that we all think that we are coming in with the best ideas, especially because a lot of us are in our early 20s, which I learned Emily's supposed to be 22, which I don't believe it, but sure. Yeah, Lily Collins came out and said that Emily was supposed to be 22, like early 20s. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I came as an au pair at 22, and I can tell you no company sent me to work social media. Yeah.
She never had any language barriers because everyone spoke English.
Perfect English.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't have that sometimes. Sometimes,
No, and even we were saying earlier about the way that she just makes friends like that.
Yeah.
That just doesn't happen. You don't move to a new country, bump into your gorgeous neighbour, befriend his amazing girlfriend, and then just meet someone in the park and be best friends. Like,
Yeah.
They always want to have like friends for like 10 years ago, 20 years ago. They're not like making, especially foreign people. They're not like, they're friendly. Yeah, some of them are friendly, but
She doesn't speak French. I mean, like, that's also a big thing. Like, you wouldn't have gotten this job if you don't speak French. Because trust me, I've been in the situation where I've worked for French companies, and just because I'm American does not mean they're speaking English to me.
Both like speaking English to one another. They would never speak English to one another just because you're present.
No, exactly.
as you can see, Emily went to the office and they actually swapped in English. That doesn't happen here. So when I came here, my first meeting, I did my French not that good, so I tried. So they tried to switch it up a bit, but the rest of it was in French. So you have to catch up. Or afterwards, you have a friend like, I missed this. What did she mean? You know.
Like there's one moment where she's arguing with a hotel concierge and her boss comes in, and if I remember correctly, her boss yells at the guy in English. And I'm like, what's the point of having a French person come defend you if they're going to speak in English? I was like, okay, this is probably for English-speaking audiences, but why would you not just have them speak in French and put the subtitles and just make it more realistic?
There were some nice costume choices, things like this, but also very, in my mind, I feel like they lacked some taste.
Fashion. Okay, you can kind of excuse Emily, okay, she's dressing that way because she's American and she, thinks that she has to dress in a way that is stylish from an American point of view. But it was a little bit too much. The super high heels, I was like, anyone who's been in Paris for more than 24 hours knows you can't wear those. And, but also, her boss. I loved, from a fashion point of view, I loved what her boss was wearing, but I was just like, nobody wears that, even in the most fashionable places. No one wears that in the office. It's much more reserved, much more kind of classic style.
Her outfits, while very fun, no one really dresses like that here unless it's Fashion Week. If it's Fashion Week, you will see that a lot, but on the daily, you don't really see a lot of stilettos. You never see berets unless you're at the Arc or at the Eiffel Tower and it's a bunch of American tourists.
I think also a lot of the style in the show, the French wear only black, and so I think the pop of colors is not something that you see often walking the streets of Paris.
There's one episode where they're going out at night and they're like, let's just go out and have fun. And they're all over the map. I'm like, okay, that's a 40-minute metro ride. That's a 1-hour metro ride. I'm like, what, do you have a personal chauffeur? How are you at the Eiffel Tower? And then you're in Montmartre, and then you're over here. What's happening? What's going on? It's much more common where you're oh, we're going out in Montmartre, and then you just spend your evening there, because ain't nobody got time to be running all over the place.
I also think they should have shown Emily's visa process. There is no way France will let you just get hired and be like, I'm on the next plane. Au revoir, Chicago. See you soon, Paris. That just is unrealistic. Unless you have gone through the 3-month-long, if not longer, process of getting a visa, it's just not realistic. And yes, that wouldn't make the best TV but it's the real French story. I would, because like also as someone who just loves Paris, it's so fun being like, I know that bakery, I know that street. Like also it just makes you feel cool to be like, someone has made a show about someone kind of like me moving here, but you're the real version of it. You've gone through it. It's almost inadvertently inspired by you and people like you.
Yeah, I would. I'm not gonna put it on my calendar necessarily, but yeah, I would watch a season 2. I think I'd be curious to see like what other situations Emily could, what other encounters between American culture and French culture exist. There's so many more hilarious experiences that you could like dive into in a season 2.
Yes.
Yeah,
100%.
It's easy to watch, it's fun.
Yeah, so easy to watch. The outfits are amazing.
Yeah, the outfits are gorgeous.
I don't think there will be a season 2, first of all, because, I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic. I think it's one of those things like, a car accident. You just you don't want to look, but you just kind of got to look. You kind of have to watch it just to make fun of it. And even if you're not, then you're just, behind the loop, because people are talking to me about it all the time, so I kind of have to be educated on it.
Yes.
I'd watch it for the drama. I didn't actually like it as like work of art, but I did love the storylines with her suitors.
Yeah, I think I would actually. I would watch it just as much as I would watch any other kind of like light romantic sitcom. And I want to know what's going to happen with Gabriel.
Yeah, because now I'm just invested in the Camille Gabrielle situation, and I feel like something is coming, and so, but I would watch it with my irony of being like, haha, I have to watch it. Twist my arm, but.
Oh my god, yeah, I'll watch it. It's a cliche series. It's like this thing that is not good for you, but you still love it either ways. It's like that type of outfit, yeah.
I think so, because like the series was really, dreamy and so light and funny to watch. Like for example, I really loved the approach of Emily, like her approach towards Paris, like how she came. She actually came with like the intent to have fun. Like she was here, she was like, it's the city of lights, she's gonna make the best out of it. It's not like most of people come, like myself, I came with a lot of like fears behind my back, like what if I don't like it, what if people are mean. And she like came with an approach of like accepting everything, so that actually made her become closer to people and like make the most out of it, I think. So yeah, I'm probably gonna watch season 2.
French people are coconuts. They're hard on the outside and soft on the inside.
That was a great analogy. Oh my
and then
God.
Americans are peaches because they're soft on the outside and hard on the inside.
I love these fruit analogies.
I'm gonna use that. That's great.